Hi guys, so those of you that are at home, I'm going to have you working on getting started on grammar for the third quarter. So if you need to pause the video to get your English Language Arts notebook, please do that now and get your notebook. When you get your notebook, you're going to go to the writing section. So if you remember early in the year, we put a Post-it note halfway through the notebook. You're going to go behind that Post-it note, kind of glance through your notes that you took first semester, and you're going to go to the next clean page in the writing section. You had Mrs. Shetty doing some grammar with you last quarter, and so that switches again, and I will be doing grammar with you this quarter. Mrs. Shetty will be working through vocabulary. So at the top of your page, once you get a clean page there, go ahead and write the notes at the top. So you're going to start with grammar, third quarter. And we're going to start talking about clauses and types of sentences this quarter. So I want you to write the definition of a clause. It's a group of words with its own subject and verb. You can pause the video and write that note. Next, we're going to write, there are two types of clauses. The first one is called an independent clause. Sometimes it's called a main clause, and it can stand by itself as a complete sentence. I believe you probably talked about clauses last year in 5th grade. Write the definition of independent clause, and then also I want you to write the example. He memorized a poem last night. I underlined he memorized because that's showing that it's got a subject and a predicate. The independent clause is the one with the subject and the predicate that can stand by itself as a sentence. You can pause the video again if you need a little bit more time. The next type of clause is called a subordinate clause or a dependent clause. It cannot stand by itself as a complete sentence. Notice the example, because he memorized a poem last night, it still has a subject and a verb. To be a clause, it has to have a subject and a verb. The difference is we've got what's called a subordinating conjunction. We've got this word because. If I stuck a period right here, it would be a fragment. It would not be a complete thought. Because he memorized a poem last night, well, the reader's waiting for more. We need more information to make that a complete thought. So you can see the difference. Independent or main clause can stand by itself. Subordinate or dependent clause cannot stand by itself as a sentence. And for today's assignment, we're going to focus in on these subordinating conjunctions to get you really used to finding those and knowing how they fit in sentences. So we've got a few more notes to take here. This should be it. Let me back this up a little bit so they're all on the same page. Okay, if you, again, anytime you need to pause the video, please do so. The main ones I want you to get are these subordinating conjunctions. I actually want you to do both columns, subordinating conjunctions and coordinating conjunctions. The coordinating conjunctions we've talked about already. They're the fanboys. You see fanboys written down the side here. And we've talked about them as we corrected run-on sentences. So these you already know. But as we start talking about the types of sentences, these will be important notes to go back to look at that. Ooh, these words signal a compound sentence. So just get those down in your notes right now, even though we're not going to focus on them today. And then we are going to focus on the subordinating conjunctions today. When we get to it, these will be complex sentences. It'll be a signal for a complex sentence. And down the side, I don't know if you can read it, but it says a white bus. And that's just a way to help you, again, remember some of these key subordinating conjunctions. After, although, as, when, while, where, how, if, than, even though, because, before, until, unless, since, so that. Now, just because you see the word after in a sentence does not mean it's used as a subordinating conjunction. And we'll look at some examples of that here shortly. It does have to come before a clause, before a subject and a predicate. If you're not finished copying these down yet, you can pause the video. Now I want to go through a couple examples, and I just want you to decide, is it an independent clause or a subordinate clause? There are no capital letters unless it's a name, or periods, because these are just groups of words. I want you to tell if it would be independent or subordinate. I enjoyed our winter break. So this one would be considered independent because I could put a period here. I've got a subject and a verb, I enjoyed, and I don't see any of those subordinating conjunctions. It is a complete thought, an independent clause. Even though we have to eat lunch last. That would be considered a subordinate clause. Even though is the subordinating conjunction. It does have a subject and a verb, we have, but it is not a complete thought. Because he reads so many books. Again, this one is a subordinate clause or a dependent clause. It's got the subordinating conjunction because. It does still have a subject and a verb because all clauses do. But because of this key word, it's a dependent or subordinate clause. The next one, James helped his dad with the project. This is an independent clause. It's one complete thought. It could be written as its own sentence. While the birds sing in the trees. This one is a subordinate clause. It's got the subordinating conjunction while. After the rain, I'm going to do these two together. After the rain ended. So, first of all, one of these is a clause and one of them is not a clause. I mentioned before that a sentence might have the word after in it, but it might not be used as a subordinating conjunction. After the rain, this is actually not a clause because it does not have a verb. So I wouldn't label that as independent or subordinate. However, after the rain ended, that would be considered a subordinate clause because it is a clause. It's got a subject and a verb, the rain ended, and it's got that subordinating conjunction. So I wanted to do one example to show you that sometimes it might be a little tricky. You might see a word after or because or although, but it has to have a subject and a verb after it in order to be considered a clause in the first place. All right, that's it for this video. Thanks.